Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, where we journey to the edges of the universe and uncover the incredible tales of humanity's place among the stars. In the heart of the galaxy's most revered political chamber, the Galactic Council made a grave mistake. They underestimated humanity. What unfolded next was not just a reply, it was a reckoning. The Galactic Council was the pinnacle of interstellar diplomacy, a symbol of unity forged over millennia by countless species. It stood as a beacon of cooperation, orbiting an ancient black hole in the galactic core, a place where time itself seemed to bow under the sheer gravity of its history. The Spire of Accord, the Council's meeting chamber, was an architectural marvel. It stretched impossibly tall, its crystalline spires refracting the light of distant stars into dazzling colors that danced across its mirrored interior. Within its cavernous halls, representatives from thousands of civilizations gathered, each bringing their unique traditions, technologies, and ambitions. Humanity's presence here was a recent development, one met with thinly veiled derision. Unlike the elder species, who had carved empires across the galaxy long before Earth had cooled from its molten beginnings, humans were newcomers. A seat on the council was not earned through charm or merit but granted out of political necessity. Their rapid expansion into nearby star systems had drawn attention more as a curiosity than a threat. The Council had offered humanity a provisional seat, a token gesture to pacify a species that seemed so eager to prove its worth. For years, humans observed silently from their modest enclave on the Council floor, dwarfed by towering beings whose bioluminescent forms shimmered with authority. The representatives of the elder species rarely addressed them directly, dismissing humanity as inexperienced and naive. Their lack of a galactic military history was a glaring mark against them. While others boasted of centuries-long wars, Starfleet campaigns, and conquests that spanned entire quadrants, humanity had no such tales to tell. To the Council, war was not just a reality but a rite of passage, a proving ground that separated the worthy from the insignificant. The condescension reached its zenith when disputes over a critical trade route escalated into a heated debate. The issue concerned a series of hyperspace corridors, vital for commerce and military logistics, running perilously close to human-claimed space. The elder species dismissed humanity's protests, arguing they had neither the fleet nor the resolve to enforce territorial claims. A representative from the Myloran Dominion, a species known for their warlike nature, spoke the words that would ripple through the council chamber and change the course of history. Humans fear war. They would rather cling to their fragile peace than face the realities of the galaxy. The statement drew laughter from many and disdain from others. It was a verdict, not just on humanity's position in this specific conflict, but on their very nature. They were labeled as timid, a species that could never rise beyond their cradle to join the great galactic powers. To the Council, fear was synonymous with weakness, and weakness was unforgivable. But those who underestimated humanity had made a grave miscalculation. Beneath the quiet restraint of their delegation lay a history forged in fire, a resilience honed by millennia of surviving their own self-inflicted apocalypses. The Council's judgment wasn't just an insult, it was a spark. And humanity had spent centuries preparing for the moment it would need to ignite. Humanity's reply to the Council's ridicule came swiftly and decisively. The Earth Alliance, representing the collective will of billions, sent their most seasoned diplomat to the Spire of Accord, Ambassador Colin Armitage. While the elder species debated among themselves whether humans would even dare to respond, Kalen's arrival sent ripples through the Council. Clad in the understated formal attire of Earth's diplomatic corps, Kalen's entrance was unassuming but purposeful, a stark contrast to the grandeur of the alien representatives towering around them. The council chamber, vast and circular, hummed with tension as Kalen stepped into the central speaking dais. Above them, the grand ceiling flickered with holographic constellations, each representing the member species of the council. The human star, recently added, glimmered faintly at the edge of the projection, barely noticeable among the brilliant clusters of older civilizations. The dais itself rotated to face every sector of the chamber, ensuring that no species could claim to have been overlooked. Today, however, all eyes were fixed on the human representative, a being they considered fragile and insignificant. The chamber fell silent as Kalen raised their hand, signaling the start of their address. It was a moment many in the council regarded with a mixture of curiosity and condescension. What could humanity possibly say that hadn't already been dismissed? They had no great fleet to boast of, no heroic tales of interstellar conquests, no legacy of wars that had forged empires. To the elder species, this speech would be little more than a formality, a token protest from a race still learning how to walk among the stars. Callan's voice rang out, calm and measured, but carrying an undeniable edge of steel. The translator systems embedded in the chamber converted the words into thousands of languages, ensuring no misunderstanding. Callan began by addressing the accusation that humanity feared war. The phrase echoed through the chamber, drawing faint murmurs from the audience. It was clear that many had expected the humans to plead their case meekly, perhaps even offer concessions to avoid further embarrassment. Instead, Callan leaned into the accusation, repeating the word fear with a deliberate weight that demanded attention. The council representatives leaned forward, some out of curiosity, others out of suspicion. This was not the tone of a species begging for validation. Callan's presence, though diminutive compared to the towering forms of the elder species, radiated a calm defiance. With every carefully chosen word, the ambassador dismantled the notion that humanity's lack of interstellar war made them weak. They spoke of Earth's turbulent history, the wars that had shaped nations, torn them apart, and forced humanity to confront the horrors of its own nature. They described a species that had faced annihilation time and again, not at the hands of aliens but at its own. The chamber grew quieter as Callan's words sank in. It was not what they expected. There was no bravado, no posturing. Instead, there was the quiet confidence of a people who had faced extinction not in a glorious battle among the stars, but in the ashes of their own failures. Callan revealed a truth the council had failed to consider. Humanity's fear of war was not a weakness. It was the wisdom of a species that understood its cost too deeply to ever enter it lightly. The elder species, accustomed to viewing fear as a flaw, now found themselves questioning their assumptions. There was a subtle shift in the room. Skepticism gave way to unease. Callan was not here to defend humanity's worth. They were here to remind the council that Earth's lack of war among the stars was not inexperience. It was a choice born of a legacy far more complex and dangerous than any alien could have imagined. As Callan's speech concluded, the chamber was silent. The murmurs and quiet laughter that had greeted their arrival were gone. In their place was something new, something no elder species had expected to feel in response to humanity: respect, tinged with the faintest hint of fear. As Ambassador Callan Armitage concluded their speech, the tension in the chamber was palpable. The representatives of the Galactic Council, those who had dismissed humanity as fragile and inconsequential, found themselves unsettled by the human envoy's calm defiance. But it was not just the words that had shaken them, it was the truth they carried. They had underestimated humanity's resilience, its ability to endure and evolve, no matter the cost. Callan's words had served as a reminder of Earth's past, of the wars that had scarred the human psyche. But they had also revealed something far more profound: humanity's ability to learn from their mistakes and rise from the ashes. For the first time, the Council realized that humanity's fear of war wasn't rooted in weakness, but in the scars of countless self-inflicted catastrophes. The humans had suffered, yes, but they had also survived, time and again, and they had done so by learning the true cost of conflict. Callan's words weren't a mere history lesson, they were a warning. They spoke of the great wars that had ravaged Earth in centuries past, wars that had pitted nation against nation, brother against brother, until the entire planet stood on the brink of annihilation. They spoke of weapons that could wipe entire cities from existence, of nuclear weapons and biological horrors that had threatened to undo all of human civilization. In the chaos of those wars, humanity had faced its darkest hour, and yet they had found a way to rebuild. But it wasn't just the wars that defined humanity, it was their capacity to change. When faced with the prospect of their own extinction, humans had come together, their differences set aside for the sake of survival. Callan spoke of the day when nations, once divided by ideology, united in a common cause to prevent the horrors of the past from ever happening again. The human race had built an international system of cooperation, a fragile peace that, though imperfect, had allowed them to prosper and expand beyond their homeworld. And yet, even as humanity rebuilt, they carried the weight of those past mistakes. Their fear of war, Kalen explained, wasn't born of cowardice. It was the wisdom of a species that had learned the cost of conflict all too well. The Council's many species had never known the same kind of devastating, self-inflicted wars. They had faced external threats. Yes, but humanity's wars had been among their own kind. They had fought for resources, for ideology, for supremacy, and in the process, they had nearly destroyed their planet. What Kalen didn't say, but what everyone in the chamber understood, was that the human race had lived through the worst of what they could do to themselves. There were no great wars between human factions out in the galaxy. Humanity had chosen peace, not because they feared confrontation, but because they had seen the darkness of war and knew the depths to which it could pull them. The Council had thought of humans as naive, untested. They had believed that without the fires of galactic war to temper them, humanity would never be able to survive the trials of the stars. But what the Council failed to grasp was that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their willingness to fight, but in their ability to avoid war, to find other ways to resolve conflict. It was this wisdom, born from hard experience, that now sat before them in the form of Ambassador Kalen Armitage, a species that had faced the brink of annihilation and still chose to reach for peace, even as they stood at the edge of the galaxy. The reaction in the chamber was slow, but it was undeniable. The murmurs, once dismissive, were now filled with uncertainty. They had expected humanity to plead for their place at the table, to beg for recognition. But what they had received instead was a sobering reminder that humans were no longer the helpless, fledgling species they had once been. They were survivors, scarred but unbroken. And in the silence that followed, the Council was forced to reckon with the reality that humanity's place among the stars was no longer negotiable. It was theirs to take, whether the Council was ready or not. The response from the Galactic Council was swift, but not in the way humanity had expected. While Kalen Armitage's words had planted seeds of doubt in the minds of some, others remained unshaken. They were ancient species, some of whom had survived the rise and fall of empires for eons. Their histories were built on the foundation of war, and to them, peace was nothing more than a fragile illusion. They could not understand humanity's strange reluctance to embrace the full scope of galactic politics, where conflict was inevitable, where power was seized by force, not diplomacy. In the days following Kalen's address, the Council convened in private sessions to discuss humanity's position. The debate raged behind closed doors, with representatives of the more militant species arguing that humanity's refusal to engage in war was a direct threat to the security of the galaxy. They saw the humans' aversion to armed conflict as weakness, and they believed that without military might, humanity would soon be overwhelmed by the predators lurking in the deeper reaches of the galaxy. But then came the revelation that no one in the Council had anticipated. Humanity was not as unprepared as they had been led to believe. The Earth Alliance, in its quiet determination, had spent decades building something extraordinary, something that no one had suspected, a fleet of warships, hidden in plain sight. The fleet wasn't just a collection of crude vessels cobbled together by a desperate species. It was a highly advanced armada, designed with cutting-edge technology that no other race had even begun to comprehend. The project had been named Aegis, a defense system so advanced that it defied all expectations. Kalen Armitage, with a cold, precise calmness, revealed the truth to the Council. Humanity had been preparing for war all along, but they hadn't wanted to show their hand. They hadn't sought conflict, but they had recognized the necessity of readiness. Earth, though known for its fragile peace, had quietly amassed a formidable armada, equipped with technologies reverse-engineered from the very species that had once looked down on them. Kalen's announcement was delivered with an unshakable confidence. There were no threats, no demands. It wasn't necessary. Humanity wasn't here to beg for recognition, nor were they seeking approval. They had been silently watching, gathering knowledge, and building the power necessary to protect themselves and to ensure that they would never again be at the mercy of the galaxy's older, more established powers. The revelation hit the Council like a thunderclap. The room, once full of prideful dismissals and underestimation, fell into stunned silence. The Maileron Dominion, who had scoffed at the notion of human fear, now found themselves wondering just what they had been so eager to mock. For the first time, they saw that humanity had not just been holding back, they had been waiting for the moment when their strength could no longer be ignored. The fleet itself was a marvel. Humans had spent centuries developing weapons and technology far beyond what their size and resources should have allowed. Their ships were sleek, with smooth, dark hulls that seemed to absorb the light around them. The technology behind their weapons was incomprehensible to many in the Council, designed not just for destruction, but for precision. The ships were capable of outmaneuvering anything the Council had seen before, equipped with energy shields capable of deflecting weapons that would obliterate lesser vessels. The human military did not seek dominance, they sought survival, and in that they had become masters. The fleet's purpose was not to conquer, but to ensure that humanity would never again be at the mercy of galactic powers. And what Kalen made clear was that this fleet was not merely a show of force. It was a symbol of humanity's resolve. They would not go to war willingly, but if pushed, they would fight not just for themselves but for the galaxy itself. The fleet's capabilities made it clear that humanity was no longer a passive player in galactic politics, they were a force to be reckoned with. The Council's initial shock gave way to an awkward silence, then a hum of nervous energy. The implications were clear. The humans had not just presented themselves as a peaceful species seeking refuge among the stars. They had shown the galaxy that they could stand toe-to-toe with any civilization, that their resolve to protect themselves was matched only by their cunning. The Council had underestimated humanity. And now they were forced to reckon with a species that was no longer fragile but fully aware of its power. Humanity, once seen as weak, was now an undeniable presence in the galaxy of force that would no longer be ignored. The Council might have thought humanity's fear of war was a weakness, but it was becoming increasingly clear that it was, in fact, their greatest strength. As the announcement of humanity's hidden fleet reverberated through the Council, many species had already begun to reassess their positions. The initial shock, however, was nothing compared to what came next. Just as the Council began to process the gravity of humanity's revelation, a new crisis erupted, a threat far greater than the petty squabbles and trade route disputes that had dominated the Council's attention for centuries. A shadowy force, known only as the Vrolok Swarm, had been probing the edges of Council space for years. Few had taken them seriously. The Vrolok were a race of insectoid marauders, operating outside the bounds of known galactic law, and their attacks had always been sporadic, low-scale raids on isolated colonies. Some of the Council members, especially those from the older, more established species, had dismissed the Vrolok as little more than a nuisance. But what was once dismissed as petty piracy soon became something far more dangerous.
The Vrolok had launched a coordinated, full-scale assault on several frontier systems, bypassing the usual defenses with terrifying precision. Their ships, dark and nigh impossible to detect, seemed to strike from nowhere, and their speed and ferocity left the outer colonies reeling. The Council had already proven its weakness in dealing with such attacks. They argued, debated, and failed to act swiftly enough. The massive, technologically advanced fleets of the Council's member states were too slow to respond to the cunning tactics of the Vrolok, and when the situation grew dire, they hesitated to take unified action. It was then that humanity, with its newly unveiled fleet, took a stand. The Earth Alliance had been quietly watching the growing instability, and they knew that the time had come to act. Despite the Council's dismissals and the belittling remarks they had endured, humanity wasn't content to sit idly by. The Vrolok were a threat to everyone, and humans had always understood the need for unity in the face of destruction. In a daring and unexpected move, humanity's fleet, now fully operational, deployed into the war zone at full force. This was not a diplomatic mission, nor a show of force for political leverage. It was a rescue mission. With the vast resources of their fleet, humanity's ships were not just an army but a shield, arriving in the outer colonies just as the Vrulak's main assault force was preparing to land on a civilian world. The battle that followed was unlike any the Council had witnessed. Humanity's fleet was not simply a collection of ships, it was an intricate, well-coordinated force, with each ship equipped with specialized technology designed to exploit the weaknesses of the Vrolak's speed and unpredictability. The humans fought with a calm precision that stunned their allies and enemies alike. Their ships moved in tight formations, working seamlessly with the smaller, more nimble species that had been left vulnerable by the Vrolak onslaught. Together, they carved through the swarm's defenses, striking swiftly and decisively. For the first time, the Council saw humanity in action, not as a species that feared war, but as one that had learned how to fight on its own terms. They had mastered the art of survival, and their willingness to risk everything in defense of others was something that even the most war-hardened species of the Council could not ignore. While the larger species quibbled over territory and politics, humanity showed them the true meaning of sacrifice. Despite heavy losses, humanity's fleet turned the tide of battle. They forced the Vrolak to retreat, their swift, coordinated strikes leaving the marauding force no room to regroup. What was supposed to be a swift invasion turned into a disorganized retreat, as the Vrolak found themselves outmatched by the humans' unexpected combat proficiency. The outer colonies, battered but unbroken, were saved. The Council, for the first time, had witnessed the human capacity for unity under fire. There was no arrogance, no vainglorious speeches, just the quiet, unrelenting drive to protect what was theirs and defend those who could not defend themselves. This wasn't about proving a point to the Council, it was about ensuring that the galaxy would survive the chaos of forces like the Vrolak. The humans had not sought this battle, but they had fought with every ounce of their being to protect the future. When the last of the Vrolak ships vanished into the darkness of space, the galaxy was left with an undeniable truth. Humanity's refusal to back down in the face of danger was no weakness. It was a strength that would shape the future of galactic politics. And, for the first time in centuries, the Council's old guard, those who had once mocked humanity's fear of war, were forced to acknowledge that humanity was a force in its own right. In the aftermath of the battle against the Vrolak swarm, the atmosphere in the Galactic Council shifted. The Council, once confident in its superiority, now found itself in the uncomfortable position of having to reassess its views on humanity. The human fleet had proven itself not just capable, but essential in defending the galaxy from a threat the Council had been too slow to handle. The galactic powers who had once dismissed humanity as inexperienced now had to come to terms with the fact that the humans had saved them, not out of obligation, but out of a fierce sense of responsibility. The once quiet humans had suddenly become the galaxy's great wild card. They were no longer the meek, fearful race that had clung to peace at any cost. They had shown that they could stand on the front lines of war, not just as survivors, but as active participants who could make a difference. And yet, as much as the Council grudgingly recognized humanity's strength, there was still an undercurrent of suspicion. The older species, whose histories were defined by long-standing conflicts and vast military machines, struggled to understand how humanity could have so quickly built such a powerful force without being noticed. How had they amassed such advanced technology without drawing attention? And why had they kept it hidden? The answer, though unspoken, lay in humanity's philosophy. The Earth Alliance had never been interested in military conquest or domination. Their fleet wasn't designed for expansion or intimidation. It was designed for survival. Humanity had learned the hard way, through wars of their own making, that peace was fragile, that conflict could arise at any moment, and that strength was necessary to protect those who could not defend themselves. Humanity had always sought to avoid war, not because they feared it, but because they understood its cost. And so, when they finally did build their fleet, it was not to wield power, but to ensure they would never again be powerless. Yet, the other species could not see that. They were too accustomed to viewing strength through the lens of aggression, conquest, and dominance. To them, humanity's quiet rise to power was a mystery, a potential threat. Even those who had been saved by humanity's fleet felt a strange sense of unease. The Vrolak were gone, but the questions lingered. What other secrets did humanity hold? Could they be trusted? Could they be reasoned with? Or was their quiet nature masking something far more dangerous? Despite the lingering tension, the Council found itself in a delicate position. They had to acknowledge that humanity's actions had saved the galaxy from chaos, but they also had to confront the possibility that humanity, with its newfound strength, might not always align with their interests. The older species were accustomed to their own power structures, hierarchies built on military prowess and dominance. To them, humanity's refusal to engage in traditional galactic politics, their quiet resolve to maintain peace through strength, was unsettling. The idea that a species could rise to such power without relying on aggression was foreign to them. It was a challenge to everything they understood about how the galaxy worked. Humanity, however, was not concerned with the politics of the Council. They had never sought to change the galactic order. They simply wanted a place within it. The Earth Alliance's priority had always been to maintain peace, to ensure that their people and their allies could live without fear of annihilation. The revelation of their fleet wasn't an announcement of domination, but a statement of self-preservation. Humanity had been thrust into galactic politics, and they had acted not out of ambition, but out of necessity. They had shown the galaxy that they could be trusted to do what was right, not for personal gain, but for the common good. But as the Council debated, the atmosphere grew more charged. While the peacekeepers among them, those who had hoped humanity would help maintain the delicate balance of power, felt a sense of hope, there were others who saw humanity's sudden rise as a challenge to their long-standing dominance. The Vrolak had been defeated, but what if humanity's sense of responsibility extended to other threats? What if they decided that the actions of the Council's older powers, with their greed and infighting, needed to be stopped? And in this moment, with the Council divided and tensions rising, Kaelan Armitage once again took the floor. Humanity's envoy had remained silent, watching, listening to the deliberations and the debates. But now, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance, it was time to speak once more. Kaelan's voice echoed through the chamber, steady and unwavering. There were no threats, no demands for power. There was only the simple truth. Humanity would not impose itself upon the galaxy. But if the galaxy turned against them, if the Council's ambition outweighed its sense of unity, then humanity would not hesitate to defend what they had fought for, no matter the cost. And as the chamber fell into silence once again, the question that had been left unasked for so long now lingered in the air. What would the galaxy do with humanity, now that it was no longer the weak, fearful species they had once believed it to be? The atmosphere in the Galactic Council chamber grew thick with tension as Kaelan Armitage's final words hung in the air. Humanity's message was clear. They would not be a passive participant in galactic affairs, nor would they stand idly by if threatened. The Council, for the first time, was confronted with a profound question. How would they treat this species that had proven capable of both immense strength and unwavering resolve?
For a moment, no one spoke. The room was filled with representatives from across the galaxy, each one processing the implications of humanity's rise. Some were still skeptical, clinging to their old beliefs about the inferiority of humans. They had assumed that humanity's fear of war was a weakness, an obstacle to true power. But they had seen humanity's fleet in action, had watched as the humans fought not just for themselves but for others, and that left them unsettled. There was something different about humanity. They were not motivated by power or greed. They fought because they understood the cost of war, and their military strength was a safeguard, not a threat. The older, more established species of the Council, those who had built their empires on conquest and subjugation, found it difficult to accept this. They had always believed that might made right, that the strongest should dominate. Humanity's resistance to this notion was disorienting. The idea that a species could wield strength without the intent to conquer was foreign to them, and they weren't sure if they could trust it. Kalen stood tall in the midst of the uneasy silence, fully aware of the uncertainty surrounding humanity's position. He knew that the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again, and that was both a triumph and a burden. Humanity had proven itself in battle, but now they had to prove that they could navigate the intricate politics of the galaxy. Kalen's role as an ambassador had always been challenging, but now it felt even more so. How could humanity convince the Council to see them not as a threat, but as a necessary ally in maintaining peace and stability? The debate began in earnest after a long pause. A representative from the Wysari Dominion, a race of reptilian beings known for their military prowess, spoke first. His voice was sharp, almost dismissive. The human fleet has proven capable, yes, he said, but what is their true agenda? If they will not conquer, then what do they seek? A seat at the table of power, a voice among those who have shaped the galaxy for millennia. The question hung in the air, a challenge that reflected the mistrust many felt. Kalen's response was measured but firm. He spoke of humanity's past, of the countless wars they had endured, the sacrifices they had made to reach this point. Humanity's interest was not in dominating the galaxy, but in ensuring that the mistakes of their past would not be repeated. The Earth Alliance's ambition was not to rule, but to build, to form partnerships based on mutual respect and cooperation, not subjugation. They sought to ensure that the galaxy's fragile peace would be maintained, and that all species, no matter their size or power, would have a voice in the future. There was a murmur of skepticism across the chamber. Some species couldn't comprehend such selfless motives. They believed that power, by its very nature, required control, and control often led to dominance. And yet, in the face of humanity's quiet strength and unwavering resolve, they began to wonder if perhaps there was another way, a way to balance power with diplomacy, to rise above the old paradigm of endless conflict. Another delegate, a member of the serene and enigmatic Tierlan collective, spoke up. Their race had long been known for their wisdom and pacifism, and their voice held considerable weight in the Council. The Tierlan delegate acknowledged humanity's actions in the Vrolok conflict, recognizing their decisive role in saving countless lives. It is true, the Tierlan said, that humanity has demonstrated a remarkable capacity for unity, even in the face of danger. But the question remains, how will they respond when their ideals are challenged? Can they maintain their resolve, or will they be swayed by the same ambitions that have caused so much turmoil in our history? The question was profound, and Kalen knew it would take time to answer. Humanity had, for so long, avoided the temptations of power and domination, but the galaxy was a place full of surprises. There were forces beyond the Council's understanding, powers that could destabilize even the most peaceful of societies. Kalen's answer was simple. Humanity would not bend to the will of those who sought to impose their dominance. They would stand firm in their principles, But they would also be open to cooperation, to building alliances with those who shared their vision of a just and peaceful galaxy. The Council's deliberations continued for days, but the shift was undeniable. Some species had come to see humanity's strength as a valuable asset, a counterbalance to the unchecked ambitions of the older, more warlike factions. Others remained wary, unsure whether they could ever trust a species that had kept its power hidden for so long. But one thing was clear: humanity was no longer a footnote in the galaxy's history. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species whose actions spoke louder than any words. As Kalen left the chamber, he felt a strange mixture of pride and uncertainty. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy, but now they faced a new challenge: to maintain their ideals while navigating the complex web of galactic politics. The future was uncertain, but one thing was sure: humanity's place among the stars had been secured, not through domination, but through the quiet, unyielding resolve to do what was right, no matter the cost. And that would be their greatest strength as they moved forward into the unknown. Thank you for joining us on Starlight Sci-Fi. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Stay curious, and keep looking to the stars.